Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, a space where I talk about all things spooky. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 22 horror books that I really want to read in 2022. 2022, it sounds so weird to say. Yes, we are in the new year. Hopefully better things are on the horizon, and hopefully I will be reading more books that I actually own instead of buying more books. But as bookworms, we all know that never happens. That is never the case. I am already thinking about going to buy new books at Barnes & Noble next week. So anyway, this video is more to hold myself accountable for all the books that I need to read. These are a lot of classic older horror books, and these are all books that I already own. They're already on my shelves. And these are also recommendations for books that you might want to add to your TBR this year. So let's get into it. The first book I desperately want to read this year is Psycho. Psycho is a classic. It is what inspired the Hitchcock classic movie about Norman Bates, the hotel manager who likes to spy on women and dress up like his mother. This story is terrifying in concept. The movie itself is iconic, and I really want to see how the book holds up. And the book is actually really short. I really want to check that one off the list this year. Then we have Burnt Offerings. This is a story about a family who move into a haunted home that seems to have a control over them and makes them do weird things. This is also a film that I still have not watched because I want to read the book first. Let's make it happen 2022. Next is another haunted house horror classic, The Amityville Horror. This is supposedly based on true events about George and Kathy Lutz, who move into a home where a series of brutal murders happened, and they claim that they experienced extreme paranormal activity, and they fled the house within a certain amount of days because it was haunted. So I've seen the movie. I love the movie. It's a classic haunted house story. I've heard mixed things about the book, but I think you have to consider the time in which it was written, and I think at the time it was written, they were trying to present it as real. We'll see. We'll see how it holds up. I'm still gonna read it and not let anybody's opinions deter me. Then we have The Other. This is a novel about two boys that are twins, I believe, and one of them is messed up. I think he's evil, and it explores their relationship. Sounds really creepy. Creepy kids. Creepy kids. We need more creepy kids in 2022. Then we have The Haunting of Hill House. I honestly can't believe I still haven't read this book. It is the blueprint for haunted house horror, I believe. It's Shirley Jackson's classic about a group of people who are staying in an infamously haunted house to study it, basically. And there's a lot of weird, creepy stuff that happens. I've seen the film, love the film, and I love the Mike Flanagan show of the same name. The reason I've always stayed away from the book is because I know it's nothing like the Mike Flanagan show, which I loved, but I watched the movie last year and I really liked it. I think it's a more slow burn, psychological, twisty story that is not over the top jump scares. So I think that I will enjoy it. I think I will. I think I'm gonna vibe with it. I'm gonna call it a 5-star already. That's a prediction. Then we're moving on to A Head Full of Ghosts. So this is a Paul Tremblay book about a girl who was possessed when she was younger, and then a film crew comes in and documents it, and I think it's told from the perspective of her sister who's not possessed. And I think this one sounds weird but also really interesting. I've also heard mixed things about this, but overall very good things. I have yet to read a Paul Tremblay book. I think this is the one I want to start. I tried Cabin in the Woods, but I couldn't get into it, but I also think that was just my mindset at the time. It's a book I would like to go back to, but I definitely really want to read A Head Full of Ghosts. Then we have Legion. This is the sequel to the Exorcist book, and it was also made into Part 3 Exorcist movie. So this centers around a police detective who is in The Exorcist Part 1, who is investigating a series of murders that have the trademark of the infamous Gemini killer who was executed like 15 years prior. So I think there's a lot of supernatural elements to this, and there's a lot of connections to The Exorcist 1. It's written by William Peter Blatty, so I'm excited to dive back into The Exorcist world. I loved The Exorcist, and I think William Peter Blatty has a really strong writing voice, and I'm excited to check this one out. I think Exorcist Part 3 is widely praised by the horror community, so, and rightfully so. It's good. I've seen it years ago. So I would love to read the book and then go rewatch the movie. Then we have The Sentinel. The Sentinel is also a film. I love the film. So The Sentinel revolves around a young, beautiful model. She's pretty troubled, and she decides to move into this beautiful brownstone apartment in New York where she learns that her neighbors are effing crazy and that it might be a portal to hell. And I mean, you know, you gotta take what you can get with Rent, but there's always a chance you have neighbors from hell, which I know very well. I have a neighbor from hell, and I hope she's listening. So then we have The Shining by Stephen King. I read The Shining years ago when I was working as a secretary in a hospital. So it was just kind of, I feel like my mindset wasn't right, and it took me forever to read because I was constantly being interrupted, and it was at a time where I wasn't super into reading. Like, I liked reading, but not the way I like reading now. And I feel like I couldn't jive with it. I couldn't get into it, and I didn't like it. And I love the film. The film is one of my top 5 favorite horror films of all time. So I think that also affected my reading because I like the film more than the book. But I want to go back and reread the book this year, give it another chance, see how it stands up. I think I've grown as a person, so I think maybe I'll like the book more. Who knows? We'll find out. Then I want to read Suffer the Children by John Saul. This cover of this book is fantastic. This is an older book about I don't even know. It's about a series of kids who are being killed, I believe. And who doesn't like that? Who doesn't like reading about that? Then we have The Auctioneer, which is another book, older book, praised. This is a paperbacks from hell, and I don't remember the actual synopsis, but it sounds messed up. Harrowing tensions explode in a series of events that could happen anywhere to anyone, just as they do to John Moore, whose days of freedom run out, who is stripped of his possessions, his courage, and his hope by the ominous presence of a stranger impossible to resist. Yeah, I don't really know anything about it other than it's really good apparently. Then we have The House Next Door. This is also another book that is widely praised, and I actually just found this book recently at a thrift store. I was so pumped to find it. So let me give you a little synopsis. It's a haunted house story, but I think it's a modern haunted house story. So this one sounds like a pretty straightforward haunted house story, but the house is newly built, and I think it explores more of the haunting between the couple who lives there. I think there's a lot more to the haunting than just a regular haunting, you know? Am I making sense? I think there's a lot more to it, and I don't want to know too much, but I've heard it's really good. Next is Relic. This is another book I found at a thrift store last year. This book is recommended all the time. This was also made into a movie. Preston Childs are authors that are always recommended within the horror community, and I have yet to read any of their books, but I have multiple different books from them, so I hope I like them. But it is about an exhibit that's happening at a museum, and then a savage murder happens there. And autopsies reveal that the killer cannot be human. So I think this is really strange and messed up, and this cover is pretty cool. I love it. Then we have The Keep. This is another book I found at Savers, and I tell you, I squealed when I found this book because these are books that are featured in Grady Hendrix's Paperbacks from Hell, and I was so excited to find this because it's one of the books in that book. And it's about, it takes place in a Romanian castle, and it's about Nazis, I believe. Yeah, that's all I know. It's about 2 people who encounter Nazis in a Romanian castle, and this cover is just so freaking cool. Then we have Hell House. This is another haunted house classic from Richard Matheson, and this is about a group of people who stay in an infamously haunted house, I believe on Halloween night, and things go crazy. They discover if it's haunted or not, and I think it is. I think it's pretty haunted. Then we have The Omen. So this is also adapted into a film, and it was adapted into a film from the writer of the book. So I think the film and the book are pretty close together. I have it, but I don't feel like getting up to get it. So for those of you who don't know, The Omen is about a family who realize that their kid might be the spawn of Satan, and he's a little mischievous bastard. So I'm excited to see how it translates into the book because The Omen is just a classic devil religious horror movie. Then we have Audrey Rose. If you've watched several of my videos, you've seen me find several different copies of this book at thrift stores, and for some reason I buy every one of them. I can't resist because the covers are so freaking cool. I actually think this is the sequel, which I don't know how they're gonna do a sequel, but the covers pretty much look the same. It's just Audrey Rose like this. Audrey Rose is about a man who believes that his dead daughter is reincarnated into the body of this other little girl, and he goes to her family and basically stalks them to tell them this information, and it's wild. I've seen the movie. The movie was really good until the end. Like, it just goes off the rails into a different direction towards the end, but the whole buildup of this dad desperately wanting to make contact with this girl who he thinks is his daughter is just fantastic, and it stars Anthony Hopkins, who's just excellent, and I hope that the book is as good as that. It's really harrowing and sad and just a very moving film before it goes crazy. It doesn't make sense. I also like the idea of reincarnation, and it also scares me. Then we have Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. So I want to read more Joe Hill in 2022. I read Nosferatu in 2020 and absolutely loved it. I think that Joe Hill, I'm gonna say something, now don't hate me, I think he writes better than his father. His father is Stephen King, if you don't know. I just feel like he gets to the point, and his characterization of female characters is a lot better than Stephen's. I just really, and that's a bold thing to say when I've only read one thing of his, but I just loved Nosferatu so much. I love the main character. So Heart-Shaped Box is the next one on my list. It's about a man who buys a ghost on eBay, which is just, that setup and alone is fantastic. And I love Joe Hill. I want to read more Joe Hill. I'm excited for Black Phone, the horror movie that's coming out later this year, because it's based on a Joe Hill story and it sounds fucked up and I just love it. Then we have Let's Go Play at the Adams. This book it sounds very disturbing. I've heard it's extremely disturbing and reminiscent of The Girl Next Door because it's based on the Sylvia Likens story. So this centers on a babysitter who becomes victim to these kids that she's babysitting. They just decide one day they're gonna mess with her and torture her, and I think that's what the whole book is about. Now, I've stayed away from this one for good reason because that doesn't sound very fun to read, but I just want to check it off my list. I just want to see if it's as scary and disturbing as they say. And I've actually really enjoyed The Girl Next Door, even though it was disturbing. I remember it just really moving me, making me extremely sad. So I gotta be in the right mind for this. We'll see. Then we have The Stepford Wives. The Stepford Wives is another classic story. This is from the author of Rosemary's Baby, Rosemary's Baby is one of my favorite horror novels of all time, and Ira Levin is an excellent writer. I love his writing, and I loved his characterization of Rosemary. She's one of my favorite characters of all time. She's a strong female that really is not afraid to speak her mind, and she's super compassionate, and she's just overall an amazing person. So I'm excited to read The Stepford Wives because this centers on, I believe it centers around a couple who move into this neighborhood where all the women are exactly the same. They're like robotic, and I want to see what's up, and I think it's gonna be good. It was also made into a movie, which has been adapted and remade several times. I haven't seen the movie actually. Then we have Ghost Story by Peter Straub. This book, I've been wanting to read this for years. It is about a group of dudes who they like gather one evening to tell ghost stories, I believe, and they're haunted by an event that occurred between them in their past. So I have a feeling these guys did something wrong, and then it comes back to bite them. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Then Flowers in the Attic. This is just, it's an iconic, infamous book from V.C. Andrews that is about a crazy mom who gives zero fucks about her children, and she wants to go live her life with her new man, so she throws her kids onto her mom to take care of, and her mom is psychotic and she locks them in an attic for years. And I think there's a lot of taboo stuff that happens that I don't really want to read about, but I do want to read this book because it's just, I feel like it's a landmark in the horror genre and I need to read it. And I've been collecting V.C. Andrews books from the thrift stores over the last 2 years and I have yet to read any of them, so I need to read one of them. And finally, rounding out that list, which I hope was 22, if it's not, I'm sorry, I'm bad at math, is Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. This is a collection of short stories, and this one features Barker's Hellraiser. I have stayed away from Clive Barker because his stories tend to be very body horror focused, and there's a lot of sexual horror, and sexual horror freaks me out. I can't gel with it. I don't like it. It makes me feel super uncomfortable, and I guess that's the point, but I don't know. I gotta prepare myself mentally. So, and Hellraiser isn't one of my favorites. I mean, I think it's cool. I think Pinhead is a terrifying villain. It's too terrifying for me, really. And I gotta bite the bullet and read it. And it's pretty short. I also found it at the thrift store. So yeah, there you have it. Those are all the horror books I hope to read in 2022. Please let me know what books you're hoping to read in 2022, and let me know if you've read any of the books I discussed in today's video. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Please hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this from me, and I will leave all my social links down below if you want to connect with me on there, and I will catch you next time. Thanks so much for watching.